What would be the ideal game to kick off Famidaily's second year? Well, it's a baseball game, of course. Moero Pro Yakyuu 88 is the second game in Jaleco's Moero Pro Yakyuu series. The original Moero Pro Yakyuu was a disaster. It was riddled with bugs that made it barely resemble baseball. Well, we know that Jaleco eventually fixed the bugs in that original Moero Pro Yakyuu, and it turns out in its first sequel, Moero Pro Yakyuu 88, that it's actually a pretty significant improvement on the original. It's still just another 8-bit baseball game, though. The big obvious change that you can see is how they changed up the fielding. They've rotated the fielding perspective about 45 degrees so that home plate and one of the base lines is always at the bottom. And it rotates that view so that first or third base is at the bottom of the screen, depending on which way the action on field is going. I think it does a better job of presenting the scale of a baseball field than other games we've seen. The stadiums feel huge in this one. A more subtle change to the fielding is that now players will run to the general vicinity of the ball on their own. It's not totally automatic, they just get close to it, and you have to do the fine maneuvering yourself. And it's still really hard to tell the ball's position based on the view. And naturally, the computer will still field perfectly every time. Another significant change is in the batting. Now you can press up and down to change how you're swinging. That change is reflected in the pitching as well. You've got a lot more control over where the ball goes when you pitch, and it's reflected in the catcher standing up sometimes to catch something. You can also throw a wild pitch that the catcher has to chase after. The biggest change is that all of your players have biorhythms. What are biorhythms? Well, it's like astrology for people who thought computers were magic. It was a very short-lived fad in the 80s where certain aspects of a person changed in a sine wave pattern. So your health would go up and down regularly. So that's completely absurd and easily disprovable. But at the time, there were all these computer programs used to calculate your biorhythm. In Moero Pro Yakyuu 88, these are used as modifiers for characters' abilities. For your fielders, these are hits, home runs, and, timely. Timely is their ability to hit a ball when it's absolutely necessary. For pitchers, those three abilities are speed, control, and stamina. The only time that you can see these biorhythms, though, is when you change out a player, or after a game when you're moving on to the next match. So it's a little bit hard to plan around those biorhythms when you can't see them. Moero Pro Yakyuu 88 is played as a pennant race. There's a smaller number of teams in your own league, and you have to beat them before you go to the final championship game. It is a full season, though. You have to win 75 out of 130 matches before you go to the championship. Then you have to win 4 matches against the championship team. The prospect of having to play out a full season of baseball is why I'm just cataloging Famicom games rather than trying to beat all of them. Even if I liked baseball, that's a bit much. Naturally, between matches you're given a password, and that's how you can play your 130-game season without sitting there for a full week. Moero Pro Yakyuu 88 fulfills the promise of the Moero Pro Yakyuu series. It looks and plays better than the baseball games we've seen so far. They even improved the sound samples from the previous game. When Japanese fans want to play Moero Pro Yakyuu, this is the game that they turn to.